Good afternoon, everyone. My name is William Gay, and I am the chair of the International Law and Immigration section of the California Lawyers Association. The International Law section was founded in 1987 to serve California lawyers who handle international legal matters in a wide variety of areas, including corporate and business transactions, immigration, litigation and arbitration, tax, regulatory and trade matters, bankruptcy, intellectual property, and family law. In 2020, the section name was changed to the International Law and Immigration section in recognition of the section's past activity in this area, as well as the importance of the movement of people in all aspects of international law. The Warren M. Christopher International Lawyer of the Year Award was established in 2011 to recognize individuals for distinguished service in the promotion of the rule of law internationally or for significant achievement in the practice of international law. Over the years, its recipients have included diplomats, academics, human rights activists, and practitioners in various areas of law, including in-house corporate positions. At this time, I would like to introduce Jeff Darr, the award committee chair and past section chair, to announce the winner of this year's award. Jeff, you're muted.
Welcome, everybody, to the annual Warren M. Christopher International Lawyer of the Year Award. By the way, originally the award was named the California Award for Achievement in International Law. And the original recipient, the first, was Warren M. Christopher. We had his family present when we had a award ceremony in person when we were in different times. And then in honor of Mr. Christopher, we renamed the award to the Warren M. Christopher International Lawyer of the Year Award. And as Bill had mentioned, this is presented annually by the section for distinguished service in the promotion of the rule of law internationally or for significant achievement in the practice of international law. Nominees must be members of the State Bar of California. A little about our award committee. The award committee is comprised of past chairs of the International Law and Immigration section. We ask for nominations from our members and from the public. Then the committee carefully vets each nomination, including past nominations. The committee then makes its recommendations to the section's executive committee, which makes the final selection. This year, the award committee is very pleased and honored that Barry Fisher is this year's recipient of the Warren M. Christopher Award. We will share with everyone why Barry clearly is a worthy recipient of the Warren Christopher Award. While we have two different criteria for the award, with only one needing to be met, as you will see, Barry meets both of our criteria: distinguished service in the promotion of the rule of law internationally, as well as significant achievement in the practice of international law. A little bit about Barry. Barry obtained his BA from UCLA and his JD from University of Pennsylvania Law School. His career has had a focus on human rights and constitutional law on behalf of ethnic, racial, religious minorities, and this has been worldwide. It has included the Kurds, the Roma, the so-called Gypsies, and many others. Barry has assisted in the drafting of constitutions and legislation for many countries, including Romania, Moldova, Albania, Bosnia, Sierra Leone, and Belarus. He is a frequent speaker and a writer on human rights subjects. Barry also has served on the multinational negotiation teams and as counsel in the German and Austrian Holocaust settlements. He was also court-appointed class counsel of the Swiss banks' Holocaust cases. In fact, he's a signatory to the resulting treaties with Germany and Austria. Barry's distinguished career also includes him serving as counsel on behalf of Chinese, Korean, and other Asian victims of the sexual slavery and slave labor systems of wartime Japan. He has also worked on Kurdish issues in Turkey and elsewhere. A little more about Barry that may not be as commonly known, but personally, I think really will give everyone a better feel for the real Barry that I've got to know as we've gone through this process of honoring him. He also has a passion for world music, which complements his international work. Barry's an accomplished and active musician. For example, he is a founding member of the Ellis Island Band, which is the oldest and most internationally renowned Los Angeles-based klezmer and world music band. With the Ellis Island Band, he has played everywhere, literally everywhere, from Opryland to Poland's Krakow Jewish Festival and many places in between. He and the band have been featured in television, major motion pictures. Barry and the band have also done crossovers with mariachi, Romani, Korean, and Kurdish musicians. As you're going to get a little better feel, this will really show you the complete Barry. It's the music, his international passions, his law, and the difference he's made, which is what makes him such a worthy recipient this year for the Warren M. Christopher Award. Barry also definitely knows how to have fun. Another example of the crossover of human rights to Barry's love of music was his formation of the group called the Drachmaniacs, which was 18 musicians to play authentic music from Transylvania and some original music as part of the centennial of Bram Stoker's epic book, Dracula. Like I said, Barry knows how to have fun. We should all emulate that. Barry's impact on the world, rule of law, and international law is obvious. When people heard, who were colleagues of him in the past, that he was getting this honor from us, we were overwhelmed with his colleagues from around the world who wanted to provide testimonials so that people would get a better appreciation of what difference Barry has made for them, their groups, and the world. We are very pleased to share with everyone the following edited video testimonials. Let me give you a brief overview of what you're going to be seeing. First, we're going to hear from Stuart Eisenstadt. Stuart is the former U.S. Ambassador to the European Union, Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Treasury, Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade, and a special representative of the President and Secretary of State on Holocaust-era issues. Second, we're going to hear from Graton Puxon, who is London-based. Graton, for over half a century, has been a leader advocating for the rights of the Romani people, the so-called Gypsies, and for the rights of British Isles traveler people, a distinct ethnic group with its own language, also so-called Gypsies, who live in Ireland, England, and Scotland. We will then hear from Ignatius Ding, a co-founder and the executive vice president of the Global Alliance, a coalition of groups and individuals in the United States, Canada, China, Taiwan, and elsewhere, working on unresolved Chinese wartime claims against Japan, wartime Japan. Then we're going to hear from Luqman Barwari, an activist for Kurdish human rights and independence of Kurdistan. Mr. Barwari long served as the president of the Kurdish National Congress of North America. Fifth, we're going to be hearing from Gurya Bumbu. He's the General Secretary of the International Romani Union and President of Pakiva Romania. And then we're going to have Zoran Dima from Macedonia. He is a senior world Romani leader, noted journalist, university professor. Last, we will hear from Jin Chung. She is in South Korea. She's a social activist and working to redress war crime victims of Koreans during the wartime Japan colonial period. Since 2013, Jin Chung has been working on the reunification of Korea and is a founder of Action One Korea, which is a grassroots organization focusing on peacemaking and the reunification process for the two Koreas. And at this time, we're going to show you the edited video testimonials, and please enjoy.
The international section of the California Lawyers Association has wisely chosen Barry Fisher as its Lawyer of the Year. I worked very closely with Barry when I was Undersecretary of State and Deputy Secretary of the Treasury in the Clinton administration, and working on the Swiss bank and Austrian and German slave labor cases. It's significantly due to Barry's advocacy that we included as beneficiaries not only Holocaust survivors, but also non-Jewish Poles, the disabled, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Roma, that is Gypsies, who were also targets of Hitler's brutality. his advocacy was absolutely crucial to make sure that they were included in these historic agreements. And it gave me a perspective on the career that Barry has had in representing ethnic, racial, and religious minorities. He's worked on not only these cases, but on the Korean comfort women who were victims of the Japanese and many other human rights issues. So Barry, I saw you up front and close. I understood your passion, your advocacy, your skill, and significantly as a result of your work, we were able to include these deserving groups in our settlement with the Austrian and German slave labor companies and governments and with the Swiss banks. So congratulations on a well-deserved award. I know you will continue in the years ahead to be the same fierce advocate you were during our negotiations for those religious, ethnic, racial minorities who deserve human rights protection and representation.
Hello, Barry. I'm glad to be here sharing this award ceremony with you, and I'm hugely pleased and for your sake that you have got the Lawyer of the Year award from the California Lawyers Association, from the international section, and this is really great news and something to celebrate. And thanks for letting me share these few minutes with you. When we got to know each other in Los Angeles, I remember one of the first things we were involved with was an event at the Seaman Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles. It was the first time they had a ceremony in connection with the genocide, Nazi genocide against Roma. And we shared that, we organized that together. Seemed a long time ago now. I remember that it was just in the early days of CNN, when CNN was just a cable broadcaster, and they covered it. Yeah, I remember that quite well, and a little bit of history that we did together. One of the big things we did together also was when the US decided there was going to be a new or an important central Holocaust museum in Washington, we went out there with some Roma from Los Angeles. I remember particularly the late John Marino, and our purpose was to lobby for a Rom to be on that Holocaust Commission. It took a bit of doing, didn't it, Barry? You remember that. We were on the steps of the Capitol. We were making quite a fuss, but it did happen. It did happen. Yeah, that was something we did together. But of course, there was a lot of work that you did, which I wasn't involved with directly. And one of the big ones was getting that fund set up with the IMO, International Office of Migration, which eventually has helped, I think, hundreds, if not thousands of Roma Holocaust survivors. So thanks, Barry. Again, congratulations. We shall go on much longer. We shall go on together longer in this cause. As you see, the Romani flag is behind me. And it has been my mission for the last 60 years to serve that cause, and I've hugely valued your support in it also.
My name is Ignatius Ding. I'm delighted and feel very much privileged to introduce one of tonight's honoree, Mr. Barry Fisher, as the Lawyer of the Year designated by the California Lawyers Association International Section. Many of you in this virtual audience know Mr. Fisher because his lifetime pursuit of justice on behalf of millions of faceless, nameless, voiceless victims of horrendous war crimes and injustice across the globe. For near 2 decades, I was fortunate to be his partner in crime, investigation, and seek justice for the victims of the evil Imperial Empire of Japan as early as 1910 through 1945. Unknown to most of the world, tens of millions were enslaved during that time by the Japanese government and the largest conglomerate known as Keiretsu, such as Mitsui, Mitsubishi, Sumitomo, Yasuda, Akura, Asano groups from 1880 through 1945. Hundreds of thousands of young women and teenagers from Asian countries, the Pacific Islands, colonized and occupied territories such as Taiwan and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in India, were kidnapped and coerced into sexual slavery as comfort women. Victims comes from everywhere, not just Asian and Pacific Islands, but also American, British, Australian, Dutch, Russian, military and civilian prisoner of war. It was back in June 2000, Billy Yuan, the GA president, and I first met in Burlingame, California to discuss and contemplating to form a partnership to launch investigation and file class action lawsuit with the intent to bring public awareness to the war crime atrocities and document the tragic past through international litigation. Barry shared with us his personal story and his extensive experience working on behalf of the Holocaust victims and survivors to pursue justice in courts. We were instantly impressed by his proposal and took the idea to the GA board and won a unanimous approval and sponsor this once-a-lifetime legacy-making program. I was officially appointed by the GA board to carry Barry's briefcase, and the rest is history. Congratulations, my friend Barry Fisher. You truly deserve the prestigious Warren Christopher Award. All my colleagues at the Global Alliance agree 100% with me. Thank you.
First of all, I want to congratulate Dr. Fisher for this award. And I would also like to give a little bit of background as far as his work that is concerning the Kurds. So I got to know Dr. Fisher in mid-2000s, and we learned about him through his past work with other minorities around the world, like the Albanians, the Belarus, the Romanian Gypsies, and etc., and also other parts of the Asian countries. So we knew right away that we can really benefit by getting to know Dr. Fisher further and getting him involved perhaps in our cause, Kurdish issues that we face on a daily basis. We also know the challenges because every time that we bring a non-Kurd on board with potential or with recognition such as Dr. Fisher, they get all kinds of harassment from other countries like Turkey and other countries that occupy Kurds. So we were aware of those challenges. Regardless, we approached Dr. Fisher to help us with some issues relating to the Kurds. So in 2012, 2011 actually, we invited Dr. Fisher to join us as a guest, distinguished guest speaker in our conference, Kurdish National Congress, that was hosted in Calgary, Canada. In 2014, we invited Dr. Fisher again to our Kurdish National Congress conference in Washington, D.C. In addition to that, Dr. Fisher has contributed on many publications relating to the Kurds. So Dr. Fisher has been a very key figure for us, the Kurdish people, because he has diligently contributed to our cause. And him and I are in close contacts, and he continues on his path of assisting the Kurdish issues on these matters. And I believe he has probably attended many other conferences that I'm not quite aware of. But I do want to congratulate Dr. Fisher for this award, and I wish him luck, and I hope that he knows that he has friends here, that he can rely on us, and we look forward to further working with him for the future.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear excellencies, I'm Graham Bumbu, and I'm former State Secretary, President of National Agency for Roma, but in the same time, I'm the General Secretary of International Romani Union. I was thrilled, actually, to find out that our brother and our person who enlightened us into the juridical sector, Mr. Barry Fisher, that is nominated for this amazing job, what he's doing. Related with the Roma communities, Mr. Fisher was one of the persons who has been there where the community has been needed. And actually he give us the way and he give us the hand from the juridical point of view to understand, and more than this, to do things related with everything what is related with the human rights. But more than this, his work into the juridical part of the compensation for the Roma Holocaust, to show us the way and to negotiate, and more than this, to be part of our communities, help us actually to move forward into what it means human rights, democracy, and understanding actually the international matters from the legal point of view. I want to highlight that he's not only a friend of the Roma community, but he was giving a lot of hands to the minorities around the world. But more than this, has been part of the what it means, the beginning of the juridical process in different countries, and I can highlight especially to the Romanian Constitutional Act, where he's been part of all these things. More than this, he was a friend, not only a friend, but a person. It's exactly what it means that he has been part of our community, because when we run, he ran around us. When we stayed, he stayed with us. When we done things, he done things with us. So we all the time, we consider him as a part of our progress. And I can remember that he was part of the amicus, if we can say it like this. He prepared actually the first amicus brief history on behalf of Roma groups of the Committee of International Roma. He was part of the consultation between Roma near to the Romanian government. He has been part of the negotiation with the political leaders, but not only with the political leaders, but also from the cultural leaders regarding the process of new Romanian constitution, consultant of the Romani Union, the International Romani Union, who is part actually of the United Nations, and we have, based on his work, the status of to the as a consultancy to the ECOSOC, to the economical and to the economical to United Nations. More than this, has been part of the Poland Romani Association meeting consultation. Mr. Graham Puxton, one of the first General Secretary of International Romani Union, he arranged and he has been support us the meeting with the Assistant Secretary of U.S. State Department for Human Rights, Mr. Elian Abrams, about here where we discuss about the persecution of Roma by the Romanian or by the Bulgarian government. He's been part and he's been helping United States Romani Council, helped organize the National Romani Organization, participates into the Romani Cris, what is our Roma or Gypsy Court, counsel in federal and state cases regarding discrimination against Roma, arrange and lead first meeting in history between White House staff and Romani delegation since 1987. Successfully lobbied President Reagan to appoint the Romani to United States Holocaust Memorial Council. Worked on several occasions with Congressman Tom Lantos and Annette Lantos on national and international Romani issues. During all this time, has been part of our movement, has been part of our life. His inspiring speeches to different conferences actually has been giving us motivational power to continue the fight for democracy, to fight for the rights of minorities, and to improve actually the standard of living of Roma, not only in Romania, but all over the places, especially in Europe. Again, thank you very much for this amazing opportunity to speak about a brother, to speak about a person who is part of our life and who is inspiring Roma leaders, but not only Roma leaders, also leaders from all over the world. Thank you very much, and please enjoy the event. Again, Gurea Bumbu, President of PACIV Romania, and also General Secretary of International Romani Union. Thank you very much.
My name is Zoran Dimov. I am President of International Romani Union. I like to speak about my very good friend and who is man helped me and give me something how fonder for me and stick my head, who is give me something very good idea, very good attentions, and give me to more information about Holocaust. First man who is give me to program and how. 1998, I first time go to Washington and how delegations to International Romani Union. I'm young man and look at the body how talk and speak for us, for every to cabinet to Iru, what in the Holocaust very support for us. Yes, Barry and the man who is like to help to people, like to look at how to, but Roma, maybe to more minority who is like to, who is called to him, who is talk to Barry and they give to support to him. I think, but my visit and Barry who is coming me in the conference to Berlin and Bucharest and Moscow, and first time tell me about more information the last 20 years what happened to Roma people, what happened to Holocaust, what happened to racism, anti-Tsiganism and else. But he give me information to more. I give to him information what happened, why, how president like to help my people, to Roma people. Now I like tell everybody, Barry man, very big man. Big man because in the like to help and give you and like listen to you, like listen what like and how to do it. Man who is very big. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Jin Zhang. I'm president of Action One Korea, and it is my great pleasure to send this greeting. I wholeheartedly congratulate Barry's receiving the California Association of Lawyers Award. And Barry and I have been working together for more than 20 years. For the cases of Korean as well as other Asian victims of forced labor and Japanese military sexual slavery, so-called the comfort women cases, in early 2000 years for several years. He was at the time the vice president of International Human Rights Lawyer Association, and Barry was the one of the final lawyers who signed the formal document of the Holocaust case settlement with the nation of Germany. So it was our great honor that inviting Barry Fisher to our legal team. But it was not easy cases. Barry used to call our effort, "We are fighting the last battle of World War II." It was very tough because not only Japan denied the historical fact, but also United Nations stood for Japan's side. U.S. alleged that the reparation issues of individual claims cannot be filed because it was all resolved with the San Francisco Peace Treaty after the World War II. Anyway, it was a great effort, extensive effort, and we traveled a lot in order to gather support from government as well as the civilian level. We traveled to Tokyo, Seoul, Shanghai, The Hague, and in various parts of the world. And especially, it is unforgettable that we visited North Korea, Pyongyang, which is my background right now. And we were at the inauguration meeting of International Solidarity Council to redress World War II Japan-related issues. And Barry is not only lawyer, but also he's a historian. And he believed that Korea should be reunited in order to restore historical justice after the liberation from the Japanese colonial rule. So I really hope that someday we can visit North Korea, Pyongyang, together with Barry. And this time, I hope that for the reunification and peacemaking issues between two Koreas. And Barry received for his various and extensive effort for Korean victims, he received year 2008, the No Gun Knee Peace Award. And I really appreciate Barry Fisher's effort as a Korean and Korean American community. We really appreciate Barry's extensive effort to restore historical justice for the Korean and the forgotten people of 20th century. Thank you.
As I mentioned a moment ago, the request to do testimonials was quite overwhelming, and you can see why we thought it was very important to share with everyone, to give you, not just my sort of overview of Barry's life, but a flavor from the people who've actually worked with Barry in helping and having him help them accomplish the very things that we're recognizing and honoring today. So on behalf of the International Law and Immigration section of the California Lawyers Association, it is my great honor to present you, Barry, with the Warren M. Christopher International Lawyer of the Year Award. And this is for distinguished service, your distinguished service, and significant achievement in the practice of international law. Normally, we would be together in reception, maybe have glasses of wine, having an ability to celebrate in person. Unfortunately, we're still in the days of doing this all virtually. And I would normally actually be with you, hand you physically the award, shake your hand, which we can sort of figuratively do, but we're not doing it in person. I know that we have had sent to you the actual award and it's been delivered to you. Do you have it by chance with you where you can hold it up? So it would be sort of similar to my giving it to you right now. Oops, there we go. just so everyone can see, there really is an award. It's quite a special award since we only give it out once a year and only so many times, as Barry spins the world for us. And Micah, if I can ask you, since we're virtual, to share with everyone a photo of the award so we can see it a little better. There we go. That's what we just provided, and even has Barry's name on it, just in case anyone's wondering if there really is an award. So Barry, seriously, we're so pleased that you're our honoree, very well deserving. And at this point, let me just say congratulations. And if we had a room of people, we would all be applauding for you right now. So my little applause is going to do it for everyone. And at this point, it's my pleasure to introduce to everyone Barry Fisher, who's going to have some comments for us. And congratulations again, Barry.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, California Lawyers Association, International Law and Immigration Section, and its leadership, Chairman Bill Gay, who's before you, its executive committee, including old friend Jeff Darr. And I thank Ambassador Eisenstadt, friends and colleagues, for your much appreciated statements. Recognition of my international law work is a great honor for a practice that really started quite early in my career, a practice now in later life, in which I'm still pretty active, including currently working on the Republic of Kosovo EU membership accession issues on behalf of Kosovo Roma, the so-called gypsies, and on a Ninth Circuit appeal criminal case concerning an extrajudicial rendition of an American. And on the immigration side of the CLA section, I still testify in asylum cases as an expert on ethnic and religious minority persecution. International law, in fact, has taken me on 40 plus years of worldwide challenging adventures, including the Subcomandante Marcos Chiapas war zone on behalf of the Mexican Human Rights Commission, still burning Bucharest shortly after Ceausescu's demise, consulting on a new Romanian constitution, East Turkey in Kurdish embattled towns, several trips to North Korea on still unresolved Japan wartime victim claims, to Moscow on how religion would be treated in newly post-communist Russia, appearances before the Brussels European Parliament and Geneva IOM, and more. And over the years, I've worn a number of different hats, like Vice President of Human Rights Advocates International, the chair of a World Jurist Association Human Rights Committee, coin-appointed receiver in international securities fraud cases and arbitrator, and being one of 3 founding attorneys of what's now called Earth Justice, formerly the Sierra Club Legal Defense Fund. How did I get into international law, and what were pathways to cases or questions that come up that I'd like to briefly talk about today? To start, from early age, I've been interested in world music, history, languages, minority peoples, international travel, and I've worked as a professional musician since high school and can play the music of many of the people I've represented, at times with them. So it's truly been a joint related law and music practice. So pathways. One enduring pathway for me to international issues has been religion. Hostilities to unpopular religions has long resulted in very important and interesting legal disputes in the United States and throughout the world, and has involved many areas of law, including human rights, land use, immigration, tax law, and more. And an early career international foray came from the Hare Krishnas, who I had represented on several cases in the US by the mid-1970s, which was when the German police and military had created a massive apparatus to eradicate the terrorist Baader-Meinhof gang. Now, if you don't know what that is, just ask Jeff Darr, who is a surprising expert on this subject. Anyway, by the latter 70s, the German police and military force had achieved their goal, and not wanting to disband, look for something else to target. And they picked the Hare Krishnas, swooping down on them all over Germany, imprisoning their leadership, confiscating their bank accounts, charging them with what was really not a very heinous offense of not having city business licenses to solicit and distribute literature in Germany. And on short notice, I was asked to go cold to then West Germany on the daunting task of organizing both a legal team and defense strategy. And among others, I met with former lawyers for the Baader-Meinhof gang and flew Pan Am to then isolated West Berlin and former Nazi Tempelhof airfield to meet with law scholars. I knew many of the legal issues involved, found German parallels to American law, and the matter was eventually worked out well for the Krishnas. Another religion-related international foray involved Russia. Not long after the Soviet Union imploded, the question arose, would there be freedom of religion, or would there be a default back to the Russian Orthodox Church's pre-revolution primacy? It was during Yeltsin's time, and I had very high-level meetings in the Kremlin, the Justice Ministry, and their Congress, the Duma. And there at the Duma, with the very powerful chair of the Religion Committee, an old Soviet kind of anti-religious guy. Surprisingly, at the outset, he started talking about his great admiration for Justice Scalia and Justice Scalia's decision in the fairly recent case of Oregon versus Smith, the Supreme Court case that had been described to him by some visiting American law professor, a case where Scalia wrote for the court denying Native American peyote free exercise claims, where he essentially said, enough is enough, we've recognized too much exercise of religious practices of the kind of offbeat or less conventional, and so this should be denied. Now, not long after I returned to the States, I testified before the House Judiciary Committee, considering the law fixing the Smith damage, and I testified about how much this Russian congressional leader loved the restrictive Smith decision. Subsequently, Congress enacted RFRA, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, repairing the damage. But I want to give you just a quick fast forward footnote to this 1990 decision of Scalia. Scalia warned in Smith that the free exercise protection to Native Americans in the case could lead to recognizing free exercise claims on religious grounds of anti-vaxxers, exactly what we're seeing today. So that's kind of interesting. Now, moving right ahead, my pathway next to the Romani and related international work. When Romani issues entered my practice at the beginning of the 80s, Grattan Puxon, who you saw, had written a book just before that I had read about Romani and the Holocaust, and it turned out he was living in LA. And for a while, we worked together on Holocaust-related issues that led to much. My taking the first in history Romani delegation to the White House, talking then President Reagan into including an LA Rome leader to participate for the first time ever at the annual Capitol Rotunda Holocaust Memorial, and much more, and including the first Rome presidentially appointed to the US Holocaust Memorial consul. And before the end of the 80s, this work led me to Serbia and meetings with Romani leaders, which now leads me briefly to the pathway to working with Ambassador Stu Eisenstadt, who you heard from at the beginning of those statements. By 1996, the surprising revelations of Swiss bank Holocaust documents triggered a number of lawsuits, and LA law professor Michael Basler hosted the first ever law school conference on litigating Holocaust-related claims. All of the several large and competing East Coast legal teams participated, as did many NGOs, and they were all focused on Jewish claims. Michael Basler, a friend I knew through his famous Poland-born klezmer musician and singer father, asked me to do a presentation about non-Jewish Holocaust era victims, including Roma, Jehovah's Witnesses, gays, the disabled, Catholic Poles, and others. And after my presentation, the lawyer teams asked me to serve on the Swiss bank's negotiating team support group that was then made up only of Jewish groups. And Stu Eisenstadt was involved in back channel negotiations and gave us updates. But it wasn't long after that I was asked to join as a full co-consul on all of the Swiss bank's cases, focusing on the non-Jewish victims. In 1998, as we were settling the Swiss bank cases, two things happened. One was that all of the lawyer teams, me included, started filing cases against German and Austrian complicit entities. And the second thing is that the US government decided to convene an historic 44-nation multi-day conference at the State Department, covering all of the then still outstanding Holocaust era claims. This included Russia and all of the former Soviet satellite countries, which had never resolved issues with Germany, which as a separate condition, as a condition of Germany's reunification, it was required that Germany finally resolve those claims. So there was this conference, and I talked the State Department into including a large Romani delegation from the International Romani Union, and also successfully pressed that a Romani leader should give an opening plenary session address following the Israeli representative who speak to the Jewish issues. And I participated as the Romani delegation consul. Following the conference and several years of shuttle diplomacy, moving back and forth from the State Department and the Austrian and German foreign ministries, all of these negotiations in which I participated, agreements were reached, and I was one of the signatories along with country representatives at the Vienna and Berlin treaty signing ceremonies with Stu Eisenstadt and others. And now I want to next just talk briefly about my pathway from the Holocaust era cases to the Japan unresolved wartime issues, which you heard several speakers talk to. While as the 20th century ended and Japan's former wartime allies, Germany and Austria, made efforts to close the historical books on their stained past, settling for what was well over $7 billion, Japan steadfastly refused to negotiate, let alone settle even a single claim for its wartime atrocities. So in the fall of 1999, as the German and Austrian issues were not far from settlement, I made contact with Asian victim organizations and representatives such as Ignatius Ding and Jin Chung, who spoke earlier. And then in 1999, I began traveling to Japan and Korea to meet with lawyers and organization leaders. And I was the only American invited to speak at a major international conference on wartime victim issues held in Tokyo in mid-December 99. And I flew from that conference to Berlin just before Christmas, joining then Secretary of State Madeleine Albright and German Foreign Minister Joschka Fischer, no relation, in announcing a major German negotiation breakthrough. And that was the first of what were actually several trips that involved both Asia and Europe. So at the beginning of 2000, I then met with victims, lawyers and academics quietly in Beijing, because no victim organizations were officially allowed in China, and there had never been any government-approved academic conferences on Japan wartime victim claims. But within 2 months of my meeting, a university in Shanghai was suddenly permitted to hold an international conference on the sexual slavery, so-called comfort women issue. And I was the only American invited to speak. And there I met with North and South Koreans and Indonesians and others impacted by this Comfort Women program. And after a couple of months, I began to put together a case, a Comfort Women case. Just a quick word about what this really was and how what an issue it was as I learned. The Comfort Women program began in 1932, right after the 1931 invasion by Japan of China. And increasingly, as it conquered nations, Japan ran a massive slave ship operation of a scope really unseen in the world since the African slave trade. Japanese ships carrying hundreds of thousands of men, women, children, POWs of many countries, carrying them all over the Pacific, from the Dutch East Indies, New Guinea, Korea, China, the Philippines, Burma, and crisscrossing the vast Pacific region that Japan increasingly controlled. And they were taken to wherever sex slaves and laborers were needed. At least some 250,000 women were kept in brothels, and thousands of other women were captured and kept as sex slaves in frontline units, and like other captives, killed at the end. In the mid-2000s, so in the mid-2000s, I began preparing a DC federal court, the Comfort Women class action case against Japan, organized legal teams and worked with groups in China, South Korea, Taiwan, and the Philippines to gather facts and pick plaintiffs, ultimately 15 class action plaintiffs from the 4 countries. The case is called Huang versus Japan. It was filed in 2000 on the historically significant date, September 18th. The date in 1931, Japan invaded China. It's China's 9/11, memorialized throughout the country every year, and I've actually been a 9/18 speaker in China. Now, complex and twice to the US Supreme Court, the history along with the other Japan-related cases are detailed in a Loyola Law Review article that I wrote some years ago, and where, among other things, I discussed the great differences of dealing with the European perpetrators and the Japanese. But one difference is I want to mention today, and that is that in every one of the many redress cases that were filed in the United States, including on behalf of American soldier POWs, slave laborers, the US government, which had forcefully taken the side of the victims of Germany and Austria, instead, in the case of the Japan victims, immediately jumped in, filing statements of interest, supporting Japan, demanding dismissal and waving the flag of American national interest. And in the case of the poor, some still alive former comfort women, this was even in the face of the US otherwise absolutely uniformly supporting all international laws against sexual human trafficking and women's rights in international fora. And finally, there's just one other matter I want to mention, and that was the pathway to the Kurds, which happened in Pyongyang, North Korea, of all places. I was at a conference about the Japan wartime issues. I met a Berlin human rights professor, and shortly after, I received a surprising email from her asking me to speak on Turkey's 1937 to 39 genocidal war against Kurds in Eastern Turkey, something I knew nothing about, had never heard of. But I was up to the challenge, did extensive research, and I did speak at a hearing at the Berlin State Parliament, and that led to many things on behalf of the Kurds, meetings, investigations in Eastern Turkey, speaking at the European Parliament on Turkish accession to the European Union a couple of times, and much more. And also my friendship and working together with a Kurdish leader, Lukman Bawari, who you heard from. So I end today's Lawyer of the Year recognition, truly appreciative of this great honor, a great milestone in my career, in which there have been at times, some awards, including the Korean Peace Prize and a Polish medal and passport was once given. But I want to leave you with two appreciations that especially stand out in my career. The first was some 20 years ago, and it gives a totally new meaning to the expression "to give thanks," an expression most commonly used in a religion context. 20 years ago, World Romani leaders met in Prague at the ornate old Czech Parliament building and held the Congress of the International Romani Union. During this Congress, the president announced I should come up to the dais for an award, specifically giving thanks for my many years of work. So at the podium in this great hall before over 2,000 assembled, I was given an 8x11 piece of green paper on which was printed in huge letters filling the whole page, the single word in caps, "thanks." So, he literally gave me thanks, which I still have and appreciate. The other lasting, the last memorable award I want to recount was after I won a major US Supreme Court First Amendment religion case involving a Minnesota statute gerrymandering church restrictions, a free pass to the state's established mainstream churches while heavily restricting the Unification Church, so-called Moonies. Sometime after the decision, I happened to be in New York and was told the church had something very important to give, thanking me for my work. At their office at what had been the historic New Yorker Hotel and still had the New Yorker big sign on top, I was handed a large jewelry box, which I opened, assuming that it was some sort of a watch. But instead, in that box was a very large bone, and explained to me as a slice of the very first tuna fish vertebrae that Reverend Moon ever caught. To them, a very important, religiously significant relic. I still have both my green card and the bone. And as a consolation after hearing the story, Jeff Darr, who could look up, Jeff Darr promised not a bone, but maybe a deboned tuna fish sandwich sometime, which if he ever actually delivers, I'll eat and not keep and treasure like the moon relic. So again, I thank the CLA International Law and Immigration section for this great honor. Thank you. So we can't hear the tuna fish present. There you go.
So thank you very much, Barry. Congratulations again. Let me just close with thanking the other past chairs on the Warren Christopher Award Committee. They put a lot of time into this and it's really appreciated. And I'll note that Bill Gay, our current chair, tomorrow's his last day. So hopefully he'll join the committee for next year. And last, and probably the most important, I just want to make sure we recognize the CLA staff who has spent a lot of time working on the presentation this year, Micah Hessler and John Boxberger. Thank you both. You've gone beyond the call of duty. And with that, thank you everyone for attending our annual award reception. We are really looking forward to being able to do this in person next year. But thank you for joining us, and we're hoping that today's presentation will be available online for people to watch. So thank you once again, and have a great rest of the day.